Today we'll be discussing DAX logical functions or logical functions in DAX. So logical function in DAX help us to control the flow of calculations and define the conditions for filtering, for decision making, and dynamic calculations. Okay. And here we are using DAX in Power BI, so we'll say in Power BI. There are various scenarios we can apply DAX. We apply DAX for or in conditional calculations where we have to perform different calculations based on conditions. For instance, in our data set we have before us here, if sales exceed a particular threshold, apply a discount. We can do that. Okay. Then the second will be filtering data. We can extract or aggregate data based on specific conditions. So we can use logical functions to achieve that. We can also use logical functions in DAX for data validation, where we check if data meets certain conditions, right? For instance, we can flag missing or incorrect values, okay? The fourth will be us creating dynamic measures, where we change metric calculation based on user interactions. We can also enhance reporting interactivity with the logical functions in DAX. The first we'll be looking at is the if function. So what does the if function do? The if function checks a condition and returns a certain value depending on whether it is true or false. So now what we want to do is that we want to check if sales exceed a particular threshold, we classify that threshold as high sales. So to do this, we definitely need to enter a new column, okay? We need to enter a new column. And to enter a new column, like we did in our previous class, you head on to Table Tools. Under Calculation, let's click on New Column. We will now go ahead and enter our formula. We want to call that column Sales Category. All right, so sales category equals. So we will now use the if function, okay? So the syntax for the if function will be if, right? We open parentheses, okay? So we have our logical tests, okay? Then result if true, then result if false. So the first thing we'll be inserting is the logical test. And our logical test here will be, in this case now, we say we want to check if sales exceed a particular threshold. And if it does, let us find that as high sales, otherwise to be low sales, right? First, open single quote to reference the table. Then the second will be to reference the column. And we are looking at the sales column in the discount use table, right? Then we want to say if it's greater than, say, we say 100,000, right? So now that is our logical test, because we are saying if the sales column in the discount use table is greater than 100,000. If this condition is met or if this condition is true, what should happen? What we want to happen is that we will want it to return high sales, okay? So we can put double quote and say high sales. We are doing this because this is a string, right? So we say comma. After comma now, we have to impute the value for result if false. If false, it becomes what? Low sales, right? So if we hit enter, we are going to have a column that categorizes sales. We are going to have sales category in our new table. So we are going to have high sales and low sales, okay? And we are having high sales and low sales based on what? Our sale column, right? If you look at our sale column, values that are over 100,000 are values that return as high sales, and why value lower than 100,000 are returned as low sales. So that is what the if function does, okay? So we have another function called the switch function. So the switch function, basically, we can call it the multiple if conditions, right? Because you notice that in the if condition here, we were able to use just two, true or false, right? But we want to use multiple if conditions. So we are going to be using the switch function to allow us to do that. So let's enter a new column And that new column now will still be maybe a different heading from sales category, but we're using sales category to exemplify this. So you could also apply that to satisfaction rating, where satisfaction rating is greater than 1, where it's greater than 3, where it's greater than 5, and so on. So you can use that in various scenarios. So let's enter a new column. We'll click on a new column to enter a new column. So in that new column now, we want to call it sales category 2, just so that we look at it side by side, right? Now, we'll say sales category 2 will be equals. We are now going to be using the switch function, right? So we'll say switch, open parentheses. So let's say true, okay? Then open and close parentheses, okay? So that will be expression, we'll say comma. Then we want to enter value 1, right? The value 1 now will be, say, the name of the table, the column, then basically what we did with the condition, right? So now let's go ahead to do that. We will open a single quote, right? We'll pick our discount use table and our interest will be sales, right? So remember when we were doing if, we say if the sales column in discount use table is greater than 100, right? So, but now because we want to categorize it into different segments, let's break that segment. So we'll say sales greater than, right? Let's say 100,000, comma. So this will be the result, right? This is value 1, then result 1. So result 1 will be high sales in quotes, right? We'll now say comma. When we say comma, we want to now enter value 2. So value 2 is also from our table. So we have to reference the table from our discount use table from sales and from the sales column. And so we'll say greater than. Now let's use 50,000, right? If it's greater than 50,000, let it be, say, medium sales. Okay, close quote. Now let's go to value 3, comma, go to value 3. So for value 3, we still repeat the same thing. This time will be greater than 25,000. If greater than 25,000, sorry, let's make this one high, not medium. Let's make this very high. Let's make this high. And then we'll make this medium. If you go ahead and just say low, it understands that you're already looking at results 4, right? Because it looks at this and say, if it's less than 25,000 now, that means it's low, okay? So what we need to do now, remember we opened the parentheses here, so we definitely have to close that parenthesis, right? So now that we close the parenthesis, our formula is okay. We'll go ahead, hit enter, I'll get our results. So if you look at it now, we have very high sales. We have high sales, medium sales. Then based on our values, we have low sales as well. So the next we'll be looking at is AND function, the AND function. The AND function tests conditions to check if the conditions are all true. For AND, if you're using two conditions, the two conditions must be true for it to return true, okay? For instance, we want to flag high-value transactions that have high rating. So we will create a new column and call that column rating, okay? And we'll say rating is equals. We need to add if with and since we want to return a statement, okay, instead of returning true or false. The true or false wouldn't really help us directly like that. So let's use if first, if, open parentheses, then and. We want to look at our sales column again from our discount use table. Let's pick sales. Sales now, if is greater than, say, 100,000, this will be a high sales, right? Or very high sales. We'll say comma, we want to enter the second logic, right? The second logic will be satisfaction rating here on this column. So we'll say satisfaction rating that is greater than 4, okay? So we have satisfied the and, right? If we close our parentheses now, we have basically satisfied the complete syntax for this and, right? Because and is testing two logics, right? Based on the syntax we have seen. So if we impute comma now, you see that this comma now takes us to satisfy the syntax for if, right? So you can see now, immediately we put comma, we are done with our logical test. That and helped us to insert here. So now, result if true. If this value is true, let it say excellent rating, we'll close our quote, comma. But if it's false, let's say poor rating, close quote and close our parentheses. So we hit enter. When we hit enter, we are going to see we have poor rating, poor rating, poor rating. And if you look at it now, why is this poor rating? It's poor rating because even though you can see this is very high, that means our sales is actually greater than 100,000, but the rating here is 3. Okay, here the rating is 5, right? But it's poor rating because the sales is not up to 100,000. Okay, if you go to excellent rating, you are going to see excellent rating have sales that is greater than 100,000, and you can see that the satisfaction rating here is 5, meeting both conditions. All right, so we use the if and the and function together. And I said the reason why we use this is so that we don't have, say, true or false as our output. But probably you may ask that you want to see how that works, okay? You may want to have true or false by the side just for the sake of the class to see how this works. So let's just try that out, okay? So we enter a new column now, and we'll just call that column rating 2, say equals. So we want to use the AND function now. We open our parentheses. You see that the AND function just tests logic and returns the default response, true or false. So we want to check the first logic now, and the first logic we used was sales, okay? So open single quote, and let's pick discount use table because we want to use the sales column from this table. So the logic is that the sales column from our discount use table should be greater than 100,000. We'll say comma. The second logic now will be satisfaction rating, okay? So let's go ahead now and say single quote, and we want to pick satisfaction rating from our discount use table. And we say satisfaction rating must be greater than 4, right? Say if the 5th rating means excellent rating, okay? So now, if we close our parentheses, you see that we have actually satisfied the AND function by testing logic. If we hit enter, we are going to get true where both of these conditions are true. That is where sales is greater than 100,000 and satisfaction rating is greater than 4. Where any of these is false, we are going to get false, okay? If we hit enter now, you are going to see that we have false where both conditions are not met and true where both conditions are met. And if you look at this rating and rating 2 side by side, you see that anywhere we have poor rating, we have false. Anywhere we have excellent rating, we have true. So instead of having true or false, which will not make sense in communicating our analysis, that is why we combined if with the AND function to help us be able to control what our output will be, okay? The opposite of the AND function is the OR function. The OR function returns true if one of the condition is true. So we are still going to be using the same condition just for context so that you are going to see the difference between the AND function and the OR function. We'll just rename this with AND underscore rating so that you will understand the difference. You will know that this is the one we use the AND. We will enter another column called the OR rating. Just as we use for the first AND, we are going to use the if with the OR, open parentheses. So now we definitely have to test these two logics now. We use sales, we'll say sales greater than 100,000, right? Comma. Then the second logic was satisfaction rating, okay, from our discount use table greater than 4. All right. So remember, we have to close these parentheses for all, okay, before we can access the if, okay? So say close parentheses and say comma. When we do that, we have satisfied our logic. That is, we are now assessing the if. So what is the result if true? The result if true will be excellent rating, comma. The result if false will be what? Poor rating. Now, if you look at this, you can tell what our results will be. If you check here, we have high sales. That is to say that our figures or our sales is definitely greater than 100,000. But again, we had poor rating, which is 3. So here now, don't be surprised that you are going to be seeing excellent rating in some of the places that we had false. We are going to be seeing excellent rating. We'll be seeing excellent rating because or is interested in any of the condition being true. That is what or wants. So if we hit enter now, sorry, I think we did something wrong. Let's see. Okay, we didn't close this code. Now we are going to get results. So if you look at this now, you see when we use the and with if, you see that we had poor rating. We had poor rating because both of the conditions were not true. When sales was higher than 100,000, discount rate was less than 4. You see, it's 3. So now with the or, we say excellent rating. It's an excellent rating because what? Because one of the conditions was met, not necessarily 2 of them. One of it was met, which was the sales. Sales was higher than what? Higher than 100,000. Rating lower than 4. But at least one of the conditions was met. Let's add another column, this time say or rating 2. And we are using or rating 2. Like I said, these examples are for educational purposes so that you will really know the functions and how to use them and where to use them as well. So let's enter a new column. In that new column, we are going to say or rating 2, okay? And or rating 2 will be equals to, we are going to use or directly and then use the logic we used. The logic we used was that our sales column in our discount use table will be greater than 100,000, then our satisfaction rating in our discounts use table will be greater than 4, okay? We close our parenthesis. If we hit enter, wherever we have excellent rating here in the first or we tried with if, we are going to have true. Wherever we have poor rating, we are going to have false. If we hit enter, you are going to see that, right? You see, we have true where we have excellent rating in the first or, we have false where we have poor rating.